Hello everyone, good morning. Thanks for joining today's webinar, The Power of JQL Language and Reporting, a compressed version of our JIRA Query Language and Reporting training. Providing the webinar today is Christopher Pepe. He's our head Atlassian, heads up our Atlassian practice. He's been working with JIRA since 2004 as an Atlassian Dragon Slayer and a Greenhopper Agile Master Ninja. Also on the phone is myself, Christian Lane, the founding partner of Pacific Consulting, and Shayla Sander with Business Development. So a little information on Pacific Consulting. We've been Atlassian experts for about 5 years, previously called partners, now experts, and we're one of 4 enterprise experts in the country. 95% of our projects are Atlassian Product Suite implementations. Our clients range from Fortune 20 companies to small 20-person companies and a whole host of industries, including technology, automotive, electric utilities, commercial arts, publishing, insurance, telephony, security, and gaming. We're a very process-centric business. We help companies implement traditional business process and BPM improvements, as well as ITSM, IT service management based on ITIL, and software development lifecycle methodologies. We really help companies build better software faster. We support our clients in all facets of the Atlassian product suite, everything from solutions and architecting and implementations to licensing, installs and upgrades, managed services, hosting, training. We're very well rounded in the product suite across all sorts of disciplines. So Atlassian is a leader in the application lifecycle management. As you can see here in the upper right quadrant of the magic quadrant for application lifecycle management. This is due in large part to their ability to execute and their ability to really lead in a visionary fashion. We're really proud to be Atlassian experts. Atlassian's really taking software development and business process management facilitation far and wide. And for that reason, we're Atlassian experts and have been pleased to be so for about 5 years. So I'm going to turn it over to Christopher, who's going to walk through the JQL reporting coursework.
So JIRA is a tool that we all know and love. Most likely, if you're here for JQL, you're probably already aware of JIRA. And when we go through and do demos for people to show them kind of the tool and what you can do with it, JQL is one of my favorite things to be able to show people because it's really one of the things that sets JIRA apart from all the other issue tracking systems that are out there. Just the kind of workflow engine and configurability of JIRA in general already kind of puts it in a class of its own, but JQL is really second to none in terms of being able to go back and look at your existing tickets, both for looking at the body of work that you're actually working on now or what your team is working on, but also historically to be able to go back and do reporting. Greenhopper really facilitates a lot of that as well with the sprint velocity charts and all of your different sprint planning boards. So JQL allows us to find absolutely everything with as wide of a stroke as we want to paint or as fine-grained as we really want to get. It lets everybody at every level of the application dig down into their data and track what it is that they need. Why it's so effective is because you can use literally absolutely everything in the system as a key to key off of. So you can make very complicated filters or very simple filters. They can go across projects, across components. Something that we see a lot of is people have multiple different JIRA projects that all encapsulate some platform that they build. And because of that, they'll have similar versions and similar components across all of those different projects. One really nice thing is that as long as the components or the versions have exactly the same name, then you can very easily report across all of those. So if you want to know, what's going to be put into release 2.1, as long as all of your projects have a release 2.1, then you can just simply put in the JQL fixed version equals release 2.1. And that'll bring back all of your tickets across all of those projects that are slated for that platform release. So in that case where you have a number of different subsystems that all make up a big platform, it's still easy to figure out what's going on across the entire enterprise. So of course JIRA is laid out in a kind of hierarchical fashion where we have project categories at the top. Then we have all of our individual projects, and that's where all of our tickets live. Components and versions are kind of two smaller buckets within the project itself that we can use to categorize our tickets. So of course components are kind of just a smaller sub-project almost, whereas versions or milestones, they have some relationship with time. They're things that you get to in an iterative nature usually. Within the projects, there's the issues themselves. They have issue types. There's the children of issues, which are subtasks. And then we have all the different system fields and then all of our custom fields that are also associated to those tickets. So they have a status in their workflow. There's a resolution that's set on them. They can have due dates. They have created, updated, and resolved dates. So there are all these different fields that are built into the system, as well as all of our custom fields that we can use to find the issues that we want. I'm actually going to skip over this slide. So let's go ahead and jump over into our training section here. So there are two different ways of searching within JIRA, and depending on what version you have, there's actually a kind of brand new simple search tool that's been released in the JIRA 5.2 series. And this new simple search tool is almost really just a graphical way of building JQL queries, and it's just kind of walking you through that. So the advanced mode, which you've probably seen in JIRA, that takes you to the JQL editor, and it just gives you a little box. And then from there, you have to figure out what am I supposed to do with this box. So that's largely what we're going to try to take a look at today is what can we do with JQL, and then we'll probably throw in a couple of the other issue navigator things if we have time. So at its simplest, JQL is just made up of a number of clauses, and then those clauses are anded or or'd together. So a clause consists of a field. In this case, project is our field. We have an operator, that's in this case the equal sign. And then we have either a value or function that we want to equate to that. So here we have project equals test. So that JQL is going to go and get all of the tickets that are in our project with the key test. Something to note is that JQL, the JIRA Query Language, it sounds like SQL, and in some ways it's structured like SQL. It's kind of a more human-readable query language, and it's really not SQL. You don't have a select statement. You can't aggregate information. There's a lot of things you can do in SQL that JQL is not designed to do, and that's not really what it's for. But it does serve as a highly functional tool to be able to search through JIRA. So some of the things that we would use filters in general for, some of this will overlap with your simple filters, but they all get decomposed to JQL anyway. But some of the things that we would use JQL for are ad hoc searches, just being able to find something. Like I know there was a ticket and it had, this particular client was associated with it, and I don't really remember anything else about it. So you can just quickly create a filter to try to start narrowing down the list of issues and find this one particular one that you're looking for. Because we do a lot of process and process optimization work, we end up writing a lot of sort of preemptive queries, and we do a lot of reporting and auditing and dashboarding as well. So if you are operating a service desk, you will have some service level agreement. If it's a high priority ticket, it needs to be resolved within 2 hours or whatever the case is. You can take all of those metrics and create JQL filters to find tickets that will be due soon and tickets that are past due, things like that. So you can use those to help enforce your SLA, to make sure that you actually get things done on time, and then after the fact to be able to report on what did we hit, what did we miss, because those are things that you need to know, not only for billing, but also why did we miss this particular, why did this ticket get lost, what can we do in the future to prevent that from happening again. Obviously, Greenhopper makes very heavy use of JQL. The boards themselves, the rapid boards, are defined by JQL. Some query is what pulls in all the tickets onto that board, and then you can have a working subfilter underneath that. All of your swim lanes and all of your quick filters, those are all little snippets of JQL as well that just get anded on to that main query that defines the board. So Greenhopper uses JQL very heavily, and a lot of the other add-ons for JIRA also use JQL. Most of the ones that we have written for our clients use JQL in some fashion, and a number of the other ones that are out there use JQL to define the set of tickets that you're interested in operating on. And then external integrations, things like Confluence. You can also run JIRA filters, take that result set, and do something with it. The simple case is just the kind of issue navigator view where you get a list of all your different issues back. But you can also run queries and then slice and dice that data whatever you want. You can embed the pie chart, for instance, or all the other gadgets that you can put in your JIRA dashboard. You can embed those into Confluence as well, and then you can feed them JQL. Just really quickly, some terminology. I've already been saying filter a lot. You probably already know what all these things are if you're already using JIRA. But a filter is just a saved JIRA search. So when we go to the issue navigator and we create some search query, at that point it's just a search, but if we saved it, then it technically becomes a filter. As happens with a lot of terms, a lot of these things just get used interchangeably, like filter, search, JQL, or query. Kind of all of those things are really referring to the same thing within JIRA. We're just defining some criteria, and we want to know all the issues that match that criteria. The issue navigator is the screen where we're actually doing the searching itself. This is the issue navigator. So you're underneath your issues tab, you go to search for issues. And in the advanced mode, you've got your JQL box right here, and then all the tickets that match it. And then once you've saved a filter, you can share them and you can subscribe to them. Those are kind of two different things you can do. So with sharing filters, you can write some really cool filter that gets some really awesome information that everybody wants to know about. And then you can share it out either with a group or a project or just with everybody in the organization. They can go and find your filters. They can favorite them by clicking the little star. Now they have access to that filter without having to recreate it. That's really useful for teams. We also, when we do our project integrations, we will tend to create a lot of filters and dashboards just to get things already set up for people so that managers and devs and things like that can kind of hit the ground running a little faster with JIRA. On the administrative side, just one interesting note about filters is now as an admin, you can take ownership of them. So if you have someone leave the company and they've got some really cool filters, as an admin, you can go in and change the ownership of those filters so that someone else owns them and they can edit them. And that's a relatively new feature within JIRA. So back to our original query. We have our clause of project equals test. Let's kind of build on that and let's look through some of the basic syntax. As I mentioned, every single field within JIRA is something that we can key off of. So here's just not a complete list, but here's a short list of the JQL field names for their corresponding fields within JIRA. In most cases, it's just the lowercase of the field itself. So where you are in your workflow is your status. It's a lowercase. Your summary field is just lowercase summary. Things that are a little bit different are like the resolution date. It's not really an actual field within JIRA itself, but JIRA keeps track of when the ticket was resolved. So your resolution is fixed, won't fixed, incomplete, those sort of things. But the resolution date is actually tracked as well. So when the ticket was created, the last time it was updated, and when it was resolved, all of those are things that are date stamps that are automatically created for you. And then we can use those to search for tickets where things happen in some amount of time. Again, for the SLA enforcement thing, we can look for tickets that are not resolved but have not been updated for some amount of time. So say if they haven't been updated for a week and they're not resolved, then we have some old stale ticket that's floating around in the system. And in a service desk where we're supposed to be constantly closing all the tickets as quickly as possible, managing our incidents, we don't want unresolved tickets that are not being updated. So that filter would allow us to go and find all those tickets and figure out why are these not being updated. All right, so we have all of our different fields, and we have a number of different operators. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. There are other ones, but just to give you an idea. So we have equals and not equals. In general, for all the operators, there will be an inverted version of it. So we want to look for project equals test or project is not equal to test. So it's going to give us all of our issues in test or all of the other issues that are in every project except for test. The tilde is a substring search. It's kind of like in SQL. So we're looking for a substring. When we're searching on the summary or the description, we're usually looking for a substring as opposed to an exact match. The summary contains the word demo. Is or is not is only used with empty, and that allows you to look for fields that are set or not set. And that's in SQL, I guess, the equivalent of looking for whether a field is null or not. In is the plural of equals. So where we can say project equals test, we can use in to say project equals tests, ABC, XYZ, some list of projects. And then there's a number of operators that allow us to operate on previous states of the ticket. So most of the operators look at the current state of the ticket, but there's quite a few of them that also allow you to look at the past. Was or was not, was and was not. This allows you, was this ticket assigned to a particular person at some point in the past? Maybe your workflow has a reopened state that it goes through, so you can look for rework. So was this ticket ever in the reopened status? And that'll allow you to look at, even though all of your tickets are closed, you can look for tickets that were reworked at some point. And then there's the changed operator, which is a kind of more generic historical operator that allows you to look for changes in specific fields. It's actually fairly involved using change, so I'll mostly just point you towards the documentation. And before the end of this webinar, I'll show you where the documentation for all the JQL is. But if you just type in, JQL help or something into Google, that'll take you right to Atlassian's documentation. That's pretty true of everything Atlassian related, is Google knows where to find it if you just ask. So we looked at fields, we looked at operators. Finally, we have functions. So we have values and we have functions that we can use for our equality checks. In our example, we had project equals test, but we can also use these different functions to look for relative information. So there's quite a few of them, as you can see. A lot of them are time related, end of the day, end of the week, end of the month. Members of is a really good one. So if you want to know the assignee is a member of my developers group, you can use this members of function to do that. Where is current user is the one that you'll probably use the most. And this allows you to create filters that will always be relevant to the person who is currently logged in. So again, in the case where we're creating filters and we are sharing them, current user is going to allow us to always return results that are relevant to the person that's running the query. So if I say assignee equals current user, that's going to give me all the tickets that are assigned to me. If I then save that filter and share it and Christian subscribes to it, that's going to show him all the tickets that are assigned to him. One other thing to note with JQL is that you are only going to get result sets back for tickets that you have permission to view. So my result sets that I see might be a little bit different than somebody else because my permissions are different than someone else. So that's another thing just to keep in mind, is that your permissions in JIRA are going to dictate what you're allowed to see. We're going to skip browser shortcuts, but you can embed browser shortcuts. And so you can type like JIRA, and it'll do this one's built in. It'll do this search right here. So you can add browser shortcuts into your browser so that then you can search directly in JIRA, directly in your JIRA. There's also a lot that you can do with the quick search bar in JIRA, which is this right here. Again, we're not going to probably get to cover that today, but there's a whole other shorthand version of JQL that you can use for searching in here. So obviously, you can search for just a term or an issue ID itself, but there's also, this is all the tickets that are reported by me, and there's a number of other things that are quick search shorthand that you can use. So let's continue to build on our JQL fundamentals here. Any of you that are programmers will have run into this in a lot of languages. Perl is rather famous for it. It's true of kind of most things. there are many ways to say the exact same thing. Really, to get the most out of JQL, you're going to have to understand what your data definition is within JIRA, how you have set things up, what your workflows look like, what your resolution statuses are. That's not true. You can still get a lot out even if you don't know that stuff, but if you know all those things, you'll know all the different numbers of ways that you can say the same thing. So if I want to know all of my open issues, all the issues that are assigned to me and are in the kind of what we call our open state, so they don't meet our definition of done and they do meet our definition of open. So here I have the assignee equals current user, that's me, and I have that clause anded together with the status is not in resolved or closed. So I know that for this particular workflow, we have two closed states. Our definition of done is the ticket is either resolved or it's closed. So if it's in either of those states, I'm considering it done and I don't want to know about it. So one way to look for my open issues is to look for things that are not resolved or closed. Another thing I can do is key off of the resolution field itself, because I know that the resolution field is empty unless the ticket is closed, unless it matches our definition of done. So here my second clause is that resolution is empty. So there's no resolution that's set, the ticket must be open. Resolution is a special case. It actually gets a kind of unresolved placeholder. And this is just a thing that I know from using JIRA for so long. So I can also say resolution equals unresolved. That's also going to give me all the tickets that are unresolved. And then if we're using Greenhopper, we're doing some sort of agile development where we are using our versions, or even if it's not, it's waterfall or whatever, but if you're using your versions, you can look for tickets where the fixed version is either in some unreleased version or it's empty. This is actually the default working subquery that comes out of the rapid boards, or at least it was at some point if they're not doing this anymore. So if you're using versions and you're doing everything iteratively, then once you release a version, then we're considering that done and historical. So this will filter out all the stuff that has already been released. So there's a lot of different ways of saying the exact same thing. There are some gotchas to kind of watch out for with that as well. If you're using something like this, status is not in resolved or closed, or if you're using the opposite of that, status is open or in progress or on hold or reopened. If you add new statuses into your workflows, or if you're searching in projects that use different workflows, you want to make sure that you're actually capturing all of the different statuses that define, open or closed in the case of these two. If you're creating your own workflows, one thing that the JIRA workflow does that you may not be aware of is when you go from resolved or closed to any other status. So when you reopen a ticket, it clears the resolution. So when you're building your own workflows, JIRA doesn't necessarily know that your definition of done is a status called canceled. So if you're building your own workflows and you have a cancel or your own closes, when you leave those and reopen tickets, you want to make sure that you clear the resolution. Otherwise, this filter is not going to work and this filter is not going to work. So there's a few caveats to know about your workflows themselves and how your data is organized. When you're keying off of custom fields and other built-in fields and things like that, it's a little bit more clear. Let's see. Custom fields, there's another thing worth noting there. It's actually true of projects and a couple of other places as well. If you use double quotes, you can use the field names themselves, the custom field name itself. If it doesn't have a space in it, you don't actually have to use double quotes. But in this case, we have use case as a custom field, and it's got a space in it. So we're using double quotes to reference that particular field. You can do the exact same thing if you're slick and you know where to find the custom field IDs, and you may even have to be an admin to get at those. You can reference the custom field by its ID. So this is a case where we have kind of pros and cons and we need to weigh them. In the case of custom fields, I always think this is a bad idea and I don't think it's worth doing, because even as the person who wrote this, I have no idea what custom field 11021 is. That means nothing to me. But the reason that I would do that is if we change this from use case to use cases, or I don't know, some fringe case, or we change the copy right here, that would break this filter because it's looking for a field called use case. So if we change the name of the field, it's no longer called use case. But I still think that the value there outweighs using the ID. Now, the same is true with projects. Initially, I showed you project equals test, and test was the key for that project. I could have also done it by the project name itself. Let's take a look at that. So I can reference this by cook. We have a project called cookbook, and its key is cook. So I can pull up all the tickets by doing project equals cook, or I can call it by name. Exact same query, it's bringing me back the exact same thing, except if I go and change the name of the project, then this filter is going to break. So those are just kind of things you need to weigh when you're writing your queries, and things to be aware of within JIRA itself. Let's see, let's look at substring searches. There was something, okay, good, I do have it. There's some really cool things that we'll get to in a second here, like word stemming and fuzzy searches. Those are really powerful features of JQL. I don't see them used a whole lot, but they're very powerful. They're very useful things. So here we're going to look at a filter where we're going to look in our SRV project, and we're going to look for the summary contains test apples oranges. Hope these tickets are still in here. They are good. So in this particular case, the substring operator, the tilde, is treating this space-separated list as 3 different queries. So here we have test apples oranges, the exact string that we wanted. We also have oranges here, we have test here, and all these other ones have test in them. That is equivalent to this query, where we are explicitly in parentheses here saying the summary contains the word test, or it contains the word apples, or it contains the word oranges. So here's the exact same result. We still have 16 issues that match that exact same query. Again, many ways of saying the same thing. But if we're looking for that exact string, we want to say test apples oranges, then instead of oring these together, we need to and them. So now we just get the one issue that theoretically we were interested in, where the summary had the words test apples and oranges in it. Obviously, you'd never be looking for that, but where we use this is we use Nagios for monitoring. It's just a monitoring tool, and it sends email alerts whenever systems go down or anything like that. And it has a very highly structured summary that it puts in the tickets. Some of it is always static, and some of it's dynamic. We want to be able to lump those tickets together. We look for those static parts with queries. So in this case, we're looking for test apples oranges. Now this query is a little bit difficult to read. There's kind of a lot of stuff there. There's 3 different clauses. It makes sense if you break it all down. The summary has to contain the word test, and it has to have the word apples, and it has to have the word oranges. So it's going to contain all 3 of those, not necessarily in that order. But it's going to have all 3 of those and be in our SRV project. But we can simplify that a great deal. We can do that by, instead of our original query, which had spaces here, and brought back all 16 of those issues, by replacing those spaces with pluses, that's going to allow us to search for this exact string. So here we have the exact string of test apples oranges, and it's only going to return tickets that have exactly that string in the summary. I don't remember what this one does, but let's take a look at it, see if I can figure it out. I remember. Okay, so what it's doing is it's called word stemming. So because we have the summary is like customized, the JQL engine recognizes that custom is the root word in customized. So it's returning tickets that have the word custom as well as customized in them. So here we have the word customized, here we have the word custom. That's because JQL is using word stemming to figure out the root word and then search for that term as well. That's something that's either going to be a gotcha that you got to watch out for, or an insanely powerful feature that you can leverage. So be aware that it exists, and try to do the latter and use it as a powerful tool that you have at your disposal. The other thing that JIRA will do is fuzzy searches. So in this case, we have our summary is like apple, but I've misspelled apple, but I've included a tilde in it. So I've said, I want this string and I want this to be a fuzzy search. So by doing that, that again brings back our test apples and oranges because APPOL looks like apples. So again, that's an insanely powerful feature. You don't see it leveraged very often. Probably one of the best uses for it would be with labels, because where components are a fixed list and single selects, multi-selects, those are a fixed list that people have to select from. Labels are completely free form, and they're case insensitive. So uppercase apple and lowercase apple are two different labels. So using fuzzy searches, you'll be able to get back labels that are misspelled and things like that. That's an important and powerful feature to know about as well. Let's skip over the rapid board. All right, I'm going to jump back over into here for a minute. I want to show you this syntax help. So in the rapid board itself, in the issue navigator itself, this syntax help box is always going to be here, and you can open that up. You can also, again, find this just by searching the web. All of Atlassian's documentation is well indexed and easy to find. I hope Atlassian's not doing maintenance or something right now. Well, we'll let that spin for a little while and I'll go search for it again. That's the help page for JQL. It's pretty similar to this top level page. Actually, I stole most of that content directly from that page. This one. A lot of this stuff is directly out of that page. So it'll go through every single field. It'll tell you all the different operators that are valid for that field. It'll show you all the different functions that are valid for that field, and it'll give you examples of how to use it. So here we have all the different keywords. We can talk about those as well. Examples of filters. And then as we scroll down, we'll find an example. Okay. So here for the field assignee, we have the syntax, the field name itself is assignee. These are all the different operators that are supported. So here's a complete list of all the operators that JQL currently supports, which are supported by the assignee field. Supported functions, so members of and current user, are both things that you can use with the assignee field to figure out if a particular ticket is assigned to a member of a group, or the assignee is the current user that's running the search. There's a number of different examples as to how you would actually run a search with assignee. And then we go on to category. It's going to do the same thing for all of those. Another nice thing about JQL, this is actually a feature you can turn off if you want to, but it's on by default, is that it will suggest to you things that are valid. So as I've started to type project, it knows that project is the only field name that is valid for what we're doing. Now, because I have a field name, I need an operator, and these are the 6 operators that are valid for project. So I can say equals. Now it knows I need a project name, because I'm looking for project, and I'm looking for project equals, and knows I need an individual project. So it's going to start showing a list of those. And then as I start typing, it's going to remove all the options that are no longer valid. And you'll notice that it is searching both the project name itself as well as the project key, because here we have Precipio Business Development, and the key is PB versus these two. You can see them in bold. So now that I've built out an entire clause, it knows that I need to either and or them together or use my order by statement. So order by is one of the keywords, one of the reserved words that we haven't talked about at all. And order by allows you to set the order of all of your different fields. So I can order by the date that they're updated. And I can do that ascending or descending. And I can order by another field as well. So let's we'll order by component, and then we'll order by updated. So if we want to set a chain of ordering, we just do that with a comma separated list, and we can specify each of them as ascending or descending. And here it's going to list out all of our different tickets in the Precipio Demos project. First listed by component, then listed by description. We don't have component shown here, so actually let's change this to issue type, just so that we can see it more visually without having to modify the board itself. So you can see these are all what are these, technical tasks? Yep, these are all technical tasks. We'll jump over to page 3 just to ensure we get something different. Then we're coming into improvements. These should be epics. These are bugs. So now we have all of our different tickets lumped into issue type categories and then sorted by their update dates. I don't think there's anything else on this page I want to show you. I would encourage you in your own time to go through this advanced search page. Let's see. The other thing you should do is look on Marketplace. For JQL, there's a number of JQL plugins that are out there. This JQL Tricks plugin is one of the most popular. It's very widely used. So that's a really good one. It is a paid plugin. You'll have to buy it, but it's a very good one. It adds a lot of really excellent features to JQL that are not there by default in JIRA. And there's a number of other ones. I don't know the rest of these nearly as well, so I won't speak to them, but there's a lot of different JQL-related plugins that are out there. So you can extend onto the language itself. You can also get add-ons that leverage JQL. The other products are starting to get a similar thing built into them. Fisheye has IQL built into it, and at least one of the other ones does as well. But JQL is by far the most powerful of the search tools that are out there. All right, let's look if there's anything else we can do. A lot of the things related to reporting and dashboarding is just generic filter work in general. I don't think there are any other JQL functions I wanted to show you. Excellent. So that was a relatively quick run through of more or less the training that we do around JQL. We work through obviously all these examples in more detail. But I would encourage you to spend a little bit of time learning JQL. It is one of the most powerful, kind of one of the greatest parts of JIRA to help you get the most out of JIRA. Filters in general are going to get you that. And I'll spend the last couple of minutes that I have before we have to switch over to questions and I have to hand things back off. I'm just talking about what you do with filters in general. So once you've actually created these filters, you can share them. You can share anything within JIRA. This will just send out an email to people saying, hey, come look at this. Again, it's going to bring them exactly to this query, but their result set will depend on what their permissions allow them to see. Underneath the views, you can obviously do the printable stuff. If you're integrating with some external system, then the XML document that gets created is actually a very useful thing. It gives you all the different comments, attachments, security levels, everything that's associated to the tickets, everything you can see within JIRA is available in that XML document. And that's if you're integrating with an external system, you're going to want to run a JQL filter, get that XML document back, and then do whatever parsing you're going to do on it. Exporting to Excel is one of the most common things that people do with filters, so we can get either the current fields, just what's shown in our issue navigator now, or we can get all of the fields. And then we can do whatever we need to do to finish massaging that data. Either draw other charts that we can't draw in JIRA, or maybe we need to email it off to somebody. You can look at a number of different charts, and you can embed the filter directly into your dashboard as well. Underneath tools, bulk changing is the other big thing that you can do with filters. So what I will commonly do, I already referenced Nagios. I'll come in, I'll look at all of our different Nagios tickets that relate to a particular incident that we've resolved, and then bulk change all of those tickets and close them all out at once. Another easy thing to do is go in and reassign a bunch of tickets to yourself. If you have favorited a filter, it's going to show up in your favorites list, and you'll be able to subscribe to it, which allows you to get a regular email. One of the examples that we usually go through, I didn't show it to you, but it's pestering. So we would create a filter that looks for tickets that the due date is sometime in the past. So these are all tickets that are past due, open tickets that their due date's in the past. So these are our tickets that either were not updated or we need to push out their due dates to get a realistic estimate of when we're going to finish those tickets. What we can do is write that filter. We can actually just look at that since we're here. We want our resolution is empty and our due date is less than now, I believe. So these are all of our tickets that are still open but are past due. I can then take this filter, save the changes to it, and I can subscribe to it. So what JIRA will do is, by default, if there are no tickets in the results set, it's not going to bother sending me an email. So I can just set this thing up to say once per day maybe, or every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day, I want to know about this. If there are any tickets that become past due, I want to get notified of that so I can go out and figure out what's wrong with those tickets or get the people that they're assigned to update them. So that's one way that you can create a pester subscription to look for tickets in JIRA that are in an invalid state. The other thing that you would normally do with a saved filter is then embed it into your dashboard. So each of the different gadgets on our dashboard has some filter that's configured into them. So here we can see the JQL training backlog filter is what's driving this two-dimensional filter statistics gadget that we have here. Those last couple things are just related to filters in general. JQL really gets you a little bit deeper than the old simple search does. But like I said in the very beginning, the new search tool in the JIRA 5.2 series is almost a graphical version of JQL, and it allows you to leverage a lot more of the aspects of JQL a lot more easily than the old simple search did.
So the first question comes from Roland. With the tilde-like operator, how do you search for exact string?
So there are a couple of different ways to do that. Let's go back into our JQL here. Oops, sorry. Clicking too fast. So really the way to do it is in that one example that I showed you. Where you string things together with pluses, it's always going to do a like type matching. You can't do, so with summary just doesn't support equals, so it doesn't support having an exact string match. So you're always going to be doing substring matches. If I knew the entire summary of what I wanted, then I could build it out like that, and that would give me my exact match. But if I leave project out here, it's still going to match demo SRV project in my summary. So the answer is you can do it this way, or if that doesn't do it for you, it doesn't support it, because summary does not support the equals operator, so you can't do an exact match of the entire summary.
Okay, great. Let me move on to the next question, also from Roland. Let's see here, referring to the subscriptions, can you set a subscription to go to other people other than yourself?
So that depends on your permissions. The answer is yes, but it depends on your permissions. So here I have the option to set recipients. By default, everyone's going to be allowed to create personal subscriptions. And then because I have permission to, I can subscribe a particular group. So, JIRA users, that's everybody that's within JIRA. I can subscribe everybody in JIRA to get the result set of this back. Or say this was this is a managerial thing. We want to know about tickets that are, past due and the due dates need to be updated. I can just set it so that all of our managers get the email, and that way they can look through it and take all of their tickets or all of their team's tickets and go update those. So yeah, the answer is yes, you can do it, but it's just based on permissions.
Okay, great, thanks. And actually, another question from Roland.
Sure.
Is there a more advanced cron type expression that could be used?
There is. Sorry, I navigated away from that. Let's go take a look at that as well. All right, so when you create your subscription, I only looked through, or I only showed you the daily. There's daily, days per week, days per month. There's also this advanced option, and that allows you to put in a cron expression. So then, if you're familiar with the Linux cron or Unix cron scheduling, you can use that to really define kind of any sort of time interval that you want this thing to run on. Great. So are there any more questions?
I think that's it. Yep, that's the last one.
Well, great. I hope it was informative. Hope you took something useful away from it.
So thanks everyone for joining in. Just as a reminder, we've got another webinar. It's a Confluence primer. It's an abbreviated version of our Confluence Fundamentals training course. That's scheduled for May 1st, 11 a.m. Central. You should be hearing from us on that information as well. As always, thanks very much for attending. We're going to send a link to those that attended. Please share with your colleagues. That way they can see the webinar in case they missed it. If you have any questions or anything of that nature, let us know at contact@precipio.com. We're always willing to help out with whatever your projects are. And yeah, we look forward to the next webinar. Thanks so much. Take care.